Thank you for joining me in the cabin of the all-new DB11. Now this car is slightly different to the car that we sat in Geneva that was covered in Saharan tan, but in black it's an eminently more business-like place to be, and quite dynamic and sporting, especially when it's paired with this contrasting red stitch. Now I'll go into the beautiful way this car is trimmed in a minute, but first of all I want to talk about some of the exciting new technology within the DB11. First thing you'll see is a big screen within the centre of the dash. Now we have an all-new infotainment setup, and we also have all-new navigation. All of it's been provided by our technical partner Daimler Mercedes, and it's a huge improvement on anything that's gone before. Sadly we don't have the key to start this vehicle and go through the actual intricate workings of that system, but it's much more user-friendly than anything we've seen before. Also, behind the steering wheel we have a full TFT screen display, and that's great because it gives us so much information that myself and other drivers will need about the car at any one time. But also what we have paired it to is this metalwork around the cowl that gives it a warmth when you first sit in the car that might be lacking if you just, for example, had a full TFT display. Within the centre of that jewellery is a bit of screen that gives you a rev counter and also a digital speed readout, and it's nice to have those bits right there in front because it's a sports car as well as a comfortable cruiser, and to have the speed and the revs right there in the forefront is an important feature. When we move to the centre console, the park, reverse, neutral and drive buttons, here made out of glass, are a feature that's become quite synonymous with Aston Martin over the years, and originally we saw that layout in the DB9 back in 2004. With keyless go, essentially you'd have the key on your person, hold down the brake and push the glass engine start stop button, and that 5.2 litre V12 would erupt into life. Underneath we have an assortment of controls for the navigation, the radio, the media, for your Bluetooth telephone, but actually they're not buttons at all. It's all finished in this very smooth effect, and like in the Vanquish before this, if you touch any of those buttons you get a small haptic feedback, a small vibration response which alerts you that you've selected something on the dashboard. The car, as I said earlier, has 360-degree cameras all round, and you can control them through here as well. And then we get to this section here at the bottom of the fascia. Now underneath the touchpad is a navi wheel, which makes controlling the infotainment system very, very easy. But above that as well you have the only element which is actually visible to have come from Daimler Mercedes, and it's a touchpad, and essentially you can write in the letters potentially on the postcode with your finger, or use it to navigate yourself around the screen. Now as we sweep backwards we have this lovely leather topped with brogue detailing lid to the centre cubby, and I particularly like this because it's very James Bond-esque. This is electric, and with a simple flick of the switch it reveals the storage space inside, and it's nice and cavernous, to be fair, really big, lots of room for mobile phones and all the other stuff that you kind of pick up when you're using the car. We also have very big door bins as well, so in terms of interior accommodation it's a car that you could really live with every day. Now the steering wheel itself is lovely and slim. It's really easy to hold, it's really dynamic, and you can get a great feel that this is a sports car as well as a GT car. You have these big paddles that control the 8-speed ZF automatic gearbox. Now just a little bit on that gearbox, it's the same unit that's found its way into many best of breed cars in the marketplace. Now Aston Martin are the first manufacturer to develop it so that it's mounted at the rear, but you have full control potentially over that gearbox to rattle through the gears and drive the car in a really spirited and dynamic manner, or you can just put the car in drive and it'll do all the shifting for you. Also you have various controls on the steering wheel that are things that you'd expect, like the telephone, but also the damper settings and the sport mode, which would sharpen up the throttle response and give you more noise. Now, we've talked about some of the kit and the equipment within the car, but when it comes to an Aston Martin, building an Aston Martin is all about the craft. Now, any of our current cars take at least 70 hours to trim from start to finish, and a team of 3 work at the factory to trim the entire interior of a car. Now, DB11 gives us some of the some really unique trim options that we've never seen on any Aston Martin product before. So if we look at the seat itself, it's an all new seat design, and I'm sat in this one. It's really comfy. You get the impression that it would be able to cosset you over many miles, but with the way it's detailed, we have this sort of separate headrest. Now in this instance it's had DB11 embossed within the head restraint, but you could have that embroidered, or you could have the Aston Martin wings, for example. There's contrast stitching around the side of the head restraint, and then we move into the body of the seat. Along the shoulders and going down into the spine of the seat is what we would call Nexus quilting. That's the element that's making this ribbed and ridged. And within that you could have either a contrasting stitch or a stitch that would match the leather, and it just creates an extra depth and tactility and detail into the seat that would be missing potentially if you didn't have it. Also, we have perforations within that quilting, and the perforations you must have if you have the ventilated seat option. Within the centre of the seat we have this broguing effect. Now, broguing is not a new technique, it's been in the shoe industry for years and years, but the reason it's nice to have it here in the interior of an Aston Martin is because our cars have a strong link to excellent British craftsmanship, and that's not too dissimilar to what we'd see in a pair of handmade shoes, for example. Now, as we mentioned earlier, there's the option to have ventilation in the seats. Heated seats obviously come as standard, you'd probably expect that. Another option is to have the side bolsters powered as well, to have electric adjustable power side bolsters. They don't work dynamically with the car, they're literally there just to keep you feel more cosseted from a fixed perspective. Now, all this detailing within the seat you can also mirror and have in the headlining. So if you just join me up here, we have the Nexus quilting, perforations and the stitching within, and then we've also got this broguing running up the centre of the roof panel as well, and this is all trimmed in leather. If you were to have it standard, it would come in a really attractive all Alcantara finish, Alcantara being the man-made suede that you typically see in sports cars. Now, if you just lift up the camera and come around with me, there's one other element I want to talk about. So we have here a veneer within the centre fascia. Now, in this particular example, this is called crushed carbon. Essentially, it's smashed up bits of carbon fibre that are then forced with a lot of heat and a lot of pressure into a veneer, and it gives this marble effect. It's something very technical, but that treated in this way becomes quite organic and quite marbleized. It's really pretty. And not only do we have it here in the sort of U of the centre console, but also we get huge great swathes of it in the door bin, in the doors as well. A few other options worth pointing out within the door. You've also got the tweeter there from Bang & Olufsen. Now, a Bang & Olufsen system is the only option on these launch edition cars, and then a 700 watt audio system will become available. And then also within the doors we shadow the brogue trim and the contrast stitching. So, what do you think? Is this a nice place to sit or what?